Good morning and welcome to our 203rd weekly webcast. Now, if this is the first time you've been with us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. The way this call works is this is an AMA, meaning you can ask me anything, kind of like you see on Reddit. You can ask me business questions, you can ask me career questions, investing questions, personal questions, any question that you ask, I will humbly answer in a generic way to apply to everybody globally, if I can. And my goal is to help you take your career or investment portfolio or level of happiness, etc., to the next level. So let's begin, and thank you as always. And what I'm going to do today is something pretty special too. I'm going to teach you guys how to sell. I prepared a bunch of slides for you, but let me go through your questions first. Okay, let me kick it off with Alex P, who wrote, "Hi Chris, hey man. Do you think credit card companies will adapt to the new AI, VR payment like technologies, or will credit card companies not be relevant at some point in the future?" Yeah, I would say credit card companies are going to be, they're going to try to own the platform completely. So I remember years ago, there's this private company when I worked in the hedge fund venture capital sector called Pay by Touch. And I met with them, did a lot of due diligence, and I decided not to invest in them for a specific reason, which I'll get to in a second. But Pay by Touch basically meant that whenever you go to a drugstore or any store, you use your thumb and you can pay. And it was the greatest idea ever. But what happened was Amex, Visa, and MasterCard did not sign up because they were worried that they would be completely bypassed by the underlying technology. And that's kind of what's happened if you fast forward to today with Apple's own credit card. So I think they're going to be very, very careful about it. They'll only do it if they can control the entire ecosystem themselves. Now, in terms of visual payment systems, it's already been well adapted. I use it all the time, even when I wear my COVID mask, and I still wear my COVID mask out there. It's done quite well, actually, that new technology. Yeah. But when it comes to AI and virtual reality in general, we have a long way to go. Like, what's happening is all the big tech companies, including Facebook, they're trying to pave a way towards this incredible future where they own a platform when it comes to Web 3.0 or AR, VR technology. The problem with this stuff, though, is a couple things. Number one, there's only 15 million of these Oculus devices. For those of you on the podcast, I'm holding an Oculus device in my hand. Only 15 million of these that exist. And the problem also is that it's just not realistic enough. You know, when I play FIFA or MLB The Show or any sports games with my kids, you know, EA Sports, it's in the game. When I do that, what happens is everything looks realistic except for the faces. So we are a long way away before this becomes reality. But tons of companies have poured billions of dollars into this market because they want another reason for people to sign up for new services, etc., as part of Web 3.0. They want to own the road and not the platform. If you want me to talk more about AR and VR in more detail, I'm happy to do so. Apple has a new product coming out this January that's going to be AR based. Thank you. All right, next up, Dan. Hey, Dan. Dan wrote, "What are your thoughts on Elon Musk's latest offer to buy Twitter?" I think it was part of his plan all along to try to squeeze him as much as possible. There's so much shareholder value that can be unlocked in this deal. I mean, I really believe that Twitter one day could be $1 trillion company. That's right. It's just being incredibly mismanaged. It has no competition globally. I mean, Trump is trying with his Truth Social platform, which doesn't seem to be working out that well. That was a bipartisan comment, by the way. But I think that he's going to turn this thing around. He'll buy it, and I think he'll take it public again in the future. And you mark my words, this will be $1 trillion company one day. Yeah. Now, he is getting squeezed a little bit because he has been having some credit issues. He's the richest man in the world. But it's tough to kind of take loans against Tesla stock if what happens is the Tesla stock is dropping materially. But he's very unemotional, and he's probably the best investor on the planet, so I would always side with him. Now, speaking of being very unemotional when you're investing, the best investors are really unemotional. I've worked for some billionaires, I won't say which ones, that are borderline Asperger's, to the extent that they didn't get too happy when things went well, when one of our companies got acquired when I worked in the hedge fund industry. And they also didn't freak out when things did not go well. And Elon Musk is very unemotional as well. His timing is impeccable. So you might recall back in March of 2020 when the stock market was at a low and the price of oil went to negative $20 for a second. I can talk about that in more details if you want to. But at that point in time, everyone was freaking out. And he backed up the truck and he bought a ton of Tesla shares. Again, that was March of 2020. And it was the perfect time to buy it. Then he sold those shares in late 2021, about 6 weeks before the market peaked in January 2022. So you got to be really, really unemotional. I think he's being unemotional about this Twitter deal as well. I think this was part of his long-term strategy, was to wait to the last second and get it as cheap as he possibly could. And Carl Icahn, who runs a big private equity firm, is going to make a fortune on this deal. I also own a lot of shares in Twitter, full disclosure. Okay. Humbly. All right, next up, Alex wrote, "Hey, Chris, hey, man. And thank you for joining my channel. I see you got the trophy icon there. Appreciate that. Thanks for the support." Yeah. So Alex wrote here, "I have investments in multi-funds and the market is down. I've already lost 30 to 40%. I'm sorry to hear that. It's been tough. Should I take money and put it into an ETF, or is it too late, or should I put in more money and wait?" Yeah, it's hard. I worked for this billionaire at a hedge fund called Pequot years ago, named Art Sandberg. God bless him, passed away from pancreatic cancer recently. Miss him. But I remember back in, it was 2007, a bunch of us that worked for him, we were pitching a bunch of housing shorts to him. Lennar, ticker LEN, and KBH. And our thesis was that the market was overvalued. And he very nicely, God bless him, stopped us from pitching that short. And he said, "Son, I'm going to stop you right there." He said, "I've been around long enough to understand never to stand in the way of insanity. Markets peak, markets trough. You can never time the market. It's impossible. That's why day trading is not a reputable career. There's not many successful day traders out there. So nobody can time the market. In terms of what should you do, there's a couple things you should do. Number one, you might want to look into options. And as part of my MBA degree program, I cover options in 30 or 40 hours in an elective I added recently. For those of you in my MBA program, it's an FA44. That's Finance and Accounting, Semester 4, Class 4. What you can do, and please do a lot of research on this first, but you can protect your positions that you own with puts. Okay, so the way it works is as follows. So Coca-Cola, ticker KO. Let's say you own a ton of shares in Coca-Cola, and for some reason you don't want to sell it. Maybe you don't want to pay taxes or whatever. Or maybe you're nervous heading into earnings. What you can do is you can protect or put a coat on Coke, so to speak, by buying what's called a put. Okay. And a put is a small amount of money that you can spend to protect your investment in a stock. So if the stock goes down, you lose money on the stock, but you make money on the put. Okay, so it washes out. It's like insurance on your house if, God forbid, there's a fire. Now, when it comes to buying options or puts, the problem is that they go down in value very, very quickly. Before right up until they expire, they go down in value a lot. It's called a time decay. But that's one thing you can do to kind of hedge your portfolio. Yeah, one thing to look into. Another thing you can do, and this is what I recommend also, is just use dollar cost averaging. And so I think one of the best investments you can make in the long run is buying the S&P 500. Now, if you're going to buy the S&P 500, the ticker is VOO. VOO, because the fees on VOO, it's an ETF, which represents the S&P 500. The fees are very small at 0.03. What that means is for every $100 you put in ticker VOO, you only pay 3 pennies per year in fees, which is low. And you pay less taxes when you buy ETFs versus buying mutual funds, because mutual fund managers chase performance in the year end, which means you have to pay more taxes. Those are hidden fees. And what I would do is, if you can do it, I know times are tough for all of us, what I would do is I would have money taken out of your paycheck every 2 weeks and put directly into the VOO, okay, a small amount. And if all you did was you invested your entire retirement savings in the VOO every year, in the long run, you'll make a lot of money. I promise you. Now, on average, the S&P 500 is up 10.5% per year. Now, that's an average move. It's obviously going to be down this year. It's up a lot other years. But if all you did was you took your retirement savings in the United States, for example, which is called a 401k, if all you did was you took your $20,000, which is a lot, every year, and you put it into the VU at a 10.5% return, then in 20 years, you'd have over $1 million, right, from that relatively lower risk asset, VU. If your spouse did it, then in 20 years, you both have over $2 million. If you have kids and you put their 529 savings program, okay, or educational savings retirement program, if you put all the money every year into VU as well, you'd have way, way more, obviously. Now, the way it works in the United States and other countries are quite similar, is you can put about $15,000 per year in an educational savings account. So let's say you got married today, and you and your wife, you put $20,000 per year each into your 401k, and you bought VU. Well, in 20 years, you'd have over $2 million. Let's say in 2 years from now, you have a kid, and you want that kid to be able to go to college, and you don't have to pay for expensive college fees later. If all you did for 18 years, right, was put the educational savings account maximum amount every year of $15,000 into VU, then at a 10.5% return. In 18 years, when your kid is ready to go to college, and you can run the numbers and test this in Excel. In 18 years, when your kid is ready to go to college, you've got another $700,000 there. So from saving and putting money in the VU every 2 weeks for 20 years, you'd have over $2 million for you and your spouse, and in 18 years, you'd have $700K for your kid. So you can't time markets. I recommend that you use dollar cost averaging, and you have money taken directly out of your paycheck. It's out of sight, out of mind. And Warren Buffett said what you want to do is you only want to spend what is left after saving instead of saving what is left after spending. And you're thinking, holy, I asked you a quick question. You gave me a whole encyclopedia, Chris. Yeah. All right. Next up, I've got Barsaga City wrote, "This is my first time. Welcome, and I hope you join us again. Thank you." All right. Moving on to Kavi, who wrote, "I'm your crypto student in Udemy from India. Thank you. 11% of my students are from India. Thank you for being here. Do you provide a complete course on blockchain and its tools?" I do not teach you how to create a blockchain. It's over my head. I am, however, creating a bunch of programming courses that are going to go exclusively into my MBA program. You can go to harounmba.com to learn more. I'm using lots of props to teach it. If you want to learn how to create a blockchain, there's this brilliant guy named Kirill who lives in Australia. That's what he calls it. I said it's Australia. He's like, no, we call it Australia. He lives in Australia, in Melbourne, and he teaches on Udemy. So just do a search for blockchain Kirill on Udemy. He teaches you how to make a blockchain. He's way smarter than I am. Yeah. Okay. All right. But I am working on creating an NFT course and a metaverse course as well. You can go to mbametaverse.com to get just a little sample of what it might look like for me to teach in the metaverse. I did a webcast earlier this year, is Webcast 171. We're on 203 now, where I taught in the metaverse. Yeah, so you go to mbametaverse.com. Thanks. All right. Next up, I got Omar. Hey, Omar, how are you? Hello, Chris. I wish that you are well and fine. I'm great, thanks, and I hope you're doing well. I am more than fully recovered now from that awful COVID bug I got in the summer. I had complications as well with pneumonia and then heart issues as a side effect from one of the drugs I took for COVID. But I'm better now than I was before even. I feel great. Thank you. Little side note, if any of you have loved ones, especially ones that are older, and I say this with love in my heart as always, if any of you have loved ones that have just gotten over COVID, if they have a cough, I want you to ignore what your GP says and demand to get a chest x-ray because it could be pneumonia, which can be lethal. This strand of COVID causes pneumonia afterwards. A lot of doctors don't know about that. My brother and my father are radiologists, which means they fix radios, and they gave me good advice as well to get a chest x-ray. I'm glad I did. Thank you. Okay. All right. So Omar wrote, "Can you please let me know your thoughts on one, your favorite financial multiple and why?" For me, I find that price to sales is useful. Yeah, absolutely. So my favorite financial my multiple or weighted value company is price to earnings. Now, a lot of people like to use price to revenue because a lot of companies are not profitable right now. So what they do is they value the company on a multiple of revenue. I prefer price earnings. And even if a company is not profitable today, what I love to do and what I teach my MBA students to do is I love to model companies 5 or 10 years into the future, and then I calculate the value of the company based on my earnings estimates in 5 or 10 years. And I slap on a PE multiple in 5 or 10 years for my target price. And so for many years, I owned Amazon and LinkedIn, ticker LNKD, when it was publicly traded. And people would always say to me, Chris, you're crazy. You're crazy to, well, maybe they're right. You're crazy to own Amazon and LinkedIn. Both those stocks trade at well over 100 times earnings. It's a widowmaker, they would say. And I would tell them, no, I'm not, well, maybe I'm a little bit crazy. It's not trading at 100 times earnings. It's trading at 5 times my earnings estimates in 5 years. And they're like, what? Well, if I model out just a basic income statement, and I teach you how to model all financial statements in my MBA program, but if I model it out, in 5 years, I got my earnings to be massive versus where they are today. And if I took the price of Amazon or LinkedIn back in time today, and I divide it by my earnings estimate in 5 years, then it's only trading at like 5 times. And so my target price would always be 20 or 30 times my earnings estimates in 5 years, which meant it was a 4 or 5 bag or a 5 by 5, a 500% return within 5 years. So I love looking at earnings longer term. And for those of you that are confused with fractions and price to earnings multiples in general, I'm going to explain it a simple way. It's so silly, but you'll never forget it. What you want to do is always assume with all fractions that the denominator is a number 1, okay? And the numerator is a multiple of that. So price earnings ratio means for every $1 in earnings you have in the denominator, how many times are investors willing to pay for that $1? So if a price earnings ratio is 10, then for every $1 in earnings, 1 on the denominator that a company has, investors are willing to pay 10 times. Always think of the denominator as being the number 1 for all fractions with everything, and it'll make a lot more sense. Yeah, especially when you look at price to revenue. Yeah. Now, when it comes to price to revenue, it's all relative. It's relative to what other companies are trading at and the growth rate of other companies in a specific sector. I remember during the summer of 2012 when I worked on a number of IPOs, or I bought a number of IPOs. One of them was Workday, ticker WDAY, Splunk, ticker SPLK, and ServiceNow, ticker NOW. The going rate then was between 15 and 20 times revenue. So it all depends on the sector and the market in general. And if you have follow-up questions, please let me know, and thank you. Yeah. All right, next up, I got a question from the man who wrote, if you had around 150,000 pounds to 200,000 pounds, what would you invest in for recurring monthly income? Yeah. You can get dividends when you invest in ETFs. So you might want to look at something like that. You also might want to look at coupon bonds as well. It might not be monthly, depends on the bond that you buy. Make sure they're AAA rated bonds as well. You can also invest in what are called the dogs of the Dow, which means you look at the Dow 30 and you pick the top 10 stocks in the Dow 30 that have the 10 highest dividend yields. Now that's going to get you a dividend every 3 months quarterly. It's not going to be monthly. What you could also do if you wanted to is you could buy real estate. It looks like you're based in the United Kingdom. One of my students, Pratik, is amazing at this. I'm happy to introduce you to him. Send me a message to support at harounventures.com. And what Pratik has done is he's bought a lot of hotels and a lot of pieces of real estate in London. And what he does is he puts a large amount down for the down payment, and then he rents out his property. And the property he rents out more than covers the mortgage, right? And that will get you monthly cash flow as well. Of course, you got to put down a large amount initially for the mortgage, yeah. And if you have follow-ups, let me know, please. Thanks. Okay. All right, next up, Dewan wrote, hey, Chris, what does an equity analyst do? Yeah. So whenever you watch television and you see, somebody from Goldman Sachs or Credit Suisse or UBS or whatever on TV talking about a certain stock and they're an expert, that's an analyst. Okay, and what happens is the big investment banks like the Goldman Sachs, Credit Suisses of the world, et cetera, what they do is they have analysts that cover each sector. Okay, so they have an analyst that covers software stocks, one that covers internet stocks, one that covers machinery, one that covers oil, natural gas, etc. And these analysts give their opinion, and then what happens is if they add a lot of value, then the big mutual funds and hedge funds of the world will trade shares through that analyst trading floor so that that trading floor can generate commissions. Also, if that analyst is really intelligent and well known, it's great marketing for the company, and it can also help that company get investment banking deals, although there is a Chinese wall between research and banking. I could talk about that in more detail if you want me to. Thank you. Okay. Next up, Omar wrote, my second question is, what are your thoughts on private lending businesses? Any tips on raising cheap loans? Yeah. I am so against loans. The only time I think you should get a loan ever is if you have a mortgage. That's the only reason. You know, if you're going to start a company, never get a loan because banks are chicken. And if you miss one payment, they can take everything. Don't do it. Don't do it. Yeah. Okay. I'd rather you raise money from high net worth investors. And if you want to raise money from high net worth investors, and I've raised and managed over $1 billion in my career humbly, and I have made lots of mistakes too, of course. What you can do is you can go to my website, which is harounmba.com. My last name is Haroun, not heroin. Just remember, Haroun rhymes with baboon. Now you'll never forget it. There you go. You can go to my website, harounmba.com, and you can download this book. It's about 300 pages plus a couple hours of YouTube videos. It teaches you how to network to get customers, a job, or anything you want. I think I've had like 30 or 40,000 downloads of it. It's great. It works. Thanks. And it's free. Yeah. That will help you raise money from high net worth investors. Okay. Then Omar wrote, any advice on keeping your energy levels and focus high? Yeah. So what I do is I biohack a lot, which I also teach in my MBA program. Talk to a nutritionist first, all that stuff, if you live in the United States, because there's lawyers everywhere, you know. But a couple of things I do to keep my energy levels high, and I'll go through all of them right now. Okay. The first thing I do is I drink a lot of water, and I try to, and this is not vodka, although I am nervous. No, I drink a lot of water, okay? And I try to drink an entire one of these every single day, and it's got the time on the side. You can buy cheap versions of this Bottled Joy product on Amazon. No affiliates for me. I don't ever have any affiliates here. So if you do this, you'll have a hell of a lot more energy. The only problem with this is I read a recent study, research study that stated that every single person that's ever drank water has died. So just be careful of that, okay? My dad humor is awful. I'm so sorry. But this helps me a lot. Okay. Number 2, coffee. What I do, and this helps with my cognitive abilities, I drink what's called bulletproof coffee. The reason I have a straw in it now is I'm trying to get my teeth to be whiter. So when I smile, it goes ding. I'm trying to get my teeth to be a bit whiter here. But bulletproof coffee, basically what it is it's a coffee you can buy from a great Canadian company Represent called Bulletproof. And the coffee is made in such a way that there's no mold in it and preservatives. The problem with regular coffee is, and I'm sure part of this is a placebo to be intellectually honest, the problem with regular coffee is quite often you drink the coffee, you get this high, and then you crash because of the preservatives and mold in it. What I also put in this coffee, and it's only about half full, right? That's it. What I also put in this coffee is some MCT oil, which is basically coconut oil. I put a tablespoon every day, okay, and this gives me great cognitive abilities as well. Be careful with that, though, please, because if you put in a tablespoon initially every day, you will get stomach aches. You got to put in a drop a day and then 2 drops next day, build up immunity to it. The third and final thing I put in my coffee every morning, this sounds out there, is something people have been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years, which is I put a tablespoon of grass-fed organic butter. And people have been doing, and it tastes like milk, so it's like coffee with milk, right? People have been doing this for hundreds of years in their tea and coffee as well. And it gives you this insanely great cognitive ability. The only problem is you have to drink a lot of water when you do this. But this is the first thing I consume. What's also in this, I forgot to mention, is two scoops of collagen protein. And that's a way for me to get more protein. I'm trying to put on muscle mass again unsuccessfully. But also it's better for your joints. This helps a lot. Yeah. Now I only have 1 coffee per day. If I don't have a coffee, I get a headache. And coffee is not bad for you no matter what anybody says. Okay. Number 3, the 3rd thing. My son Andrew, I remember years ago, my wife took him to a play. And he said on the way home, he's like, Mom, couple things. Number one, thank you for taking me to this play. Number two, thank you for the candies. And three, please don't ever take me again. It's torturous going to plays, especially for me. I remember that growing up. They made us go to Les Miserables when I was a kid. I hated it. All right, the three thing that I do every day is I consume the most incredible antioxidant drink ever. So what I've been doing for about 15 years now is every Sunday, I get a ton of organic fruits and vegetables, and I create 7 of these. Okay, and I have a juicer that does it. And so what I put in my juicer is 12 things of kale. There's tons of kale, right? Kale is a super fruit and full of protein. People don't know that. A lot of kale in here. I put lemons as well, which is better than oranges because you fewer calories and stuff. What I also put in here is raw ginger root, which is great, although it makes me cough when I'm juicing it. Also in here, I put a couple of scoops of whey protein. I put some cinnamon. I put acai, which is a great South American fruit that a lot of extreme sports enthusiasts used. I put here also, I put omega oil. I can't remember the brand name, but I do that as well. It's fish oil, good for your heart. What's also in here is I put a mushroom extract, which is good for cognitive abilities. And yes, some of this stuff I know is probably a placebo. I put flax seeds as well, just because if you're a guy, it helps you to not get cancer, hopefully. And I put a couple other items as well, which are way, way out there. I don't want to go into detail on that. But I do this, and then what I do is I fill it up also, whatever is left over, with a little bit of pomegranate juice, which is a super fruit, okay, antioxidant. And I also put in aloe, okay? And you got to fill it all the way up to the top so it doesn't go bad. And I put 7 of these every Sunday in my fridge. That helps a lot. Another thing I do to give me great cognitive abilities is I have this walking desk here. Okay, and so I can operate it here by clicking this button, and I get my steps in while I work. And so it's called Rhythm Fun. There's tons of knockoff versions of it. They're cheaper than regular treadmills because there's no arms on the side. And it allows me to go up to like 6 miles an hour. And I usually do this thing on full blast whenever my students are watching lectures before I answer questions live. But it works out well. It's great, actually. Yeah. And I came up with this idea because when I was younger, I remember when I was younger, when I used to study in the morning, 1 hour of studying in the morning was the same as 10 hours at night. And the reason is because your mind is fresh. And you're bringing a lot of oxygen to your brain earlier in the day. And so what I realized was, hey, if I can trick my brain into thinking that I just woke up all day long by exercising, then I can probably get a lot more done. And so I feel like I'm over 50 now. I'm an old man. I feel like I'm way more productive because of this. And I get 20,000 steps in every single day. I monitor my heart rate with the Oura Ring. I got an Apple Watch in my pocket as well. I keep it in my pocket because you can't count steps when you're typing. But this helps out tremendously. It's an incredible investment in yourself. I highly recommend everybody get one of these if you can do it, and one of these stand-up desks, which you can get cheap versions of this product I have here. It's on Amazon. This is like 8 feet wide. It's big. I overdo everything, I know. Yeah. So anyway, that helps with my energy. Per your question. What I also do is, from a mental health perspective, and I've done this for years, I cut off everybody in my life that's negative or brings me down. Right? When I was younger, it was, someone's kind of a jerk to me. It was 5 strikes, you're out. Now it's 1 strike. Right? I just don't have patience for it. If anybody's negative, out of my life, gone. Yeah. Surround yourself with positive people. You set the soundtrack for your own life. It works. I promise you. I promise you. Try it. You don't need them in your life. Yeah. And also, I do what I'm passionate about. And my purpose in life is to help my students find your passion as well. So I feel like when I teach, I'm your humble waiter. And when you go to a restaurant, you look at all the items on the menu, you just choose 1 or 2. So I expose you to all types of jobs in business, and you choose whatever is best for you. I'm your waiter. I'm here to humbly serve you. And if you do something you're incredibly passionate about, then you'll be happy, you'll be full of energy, and you won't have a job, you have a passion. Yeah. Last thing I have to say on that is this. This is going to sound out there. Get it. But at some point in our lives, we have to say enough is enough. I want to do what I want to do. I've got one shot at this life. I want to chase my passion and my dreams. Because I think if you chase money your entire lives, you lose your money and you lose your dreams. But if you chase your dreams, as long as you're willing to fail a bunch of times and not give a damn what anybody thinks, please fail a lot. If you chase your dreams and you're willing to fail a bunch of times, something wonderful happens. Your dreams come true and the money follows accidentally. It always does for the best entrepreneurs, no matter what anybody tells you. So follow your heart and this will follow as well. Yeah. And you'll be able to speak gooder if you do all those health tips I tell you. Okay. All right. Next question from Omar is, in which ways do you think that the recent OPEC announcement will affect global macroeconomics? Yeah, it's problematic. So OPEC is reducing production of oil at the worst time in order to drive up the price of oil, which breaks my heart because the way I look at that is I look at OPEC saying we're funding the Russian war. Like it's not fair. It is totally unfair, and I wish that first world countries or second world countries, whatever, all countries would put pressure on OPEC to not do that in terms of some sort of economic sanctions. That's what they're doing. They're helping Putin, to fund the war. So it breaks my heart. There's a couple of things the State Department is trying to do in the United States. Number one is to try to cozy up to other countries that are a little bit too left-wing in return for oil. Again, that's what they're doing right now with Venezuela. Okay, it was announced this morning. You can read the Wall Street Journal about that if you want to. Another thing, longer term, that we can do to get ourselves off oil is more tax breaks globally when it comes to anything clean tech related, non-gas powered cars, etc. And it's happening. Because of Putin's invasion, what's happened indirectly, third derivative, so to speak, is that Gavin Newsom here in the state of California, where I live here, he's created this new law that by 2035, it will be against the law to buy gas-powered cars. Washington State has done the same as well. And a very famous Saudi Aramco executive once said, the Stone Age did not end because they ran out of stones. So I think longer term, we won't be as dependent on oil. God bless the people of Ukraine. But what I will say is the only silver lining in all this awful mess that the Soviet Union or Russia has gotten us into is that it's going to force the rest of the world to get off of oil faster. Yeah. And the economic impact of what Putin has done by early 2023 will be over $2 trillion. We're all feeling it. Every one of us is feeling it. Yeah. It's awful what Putin has done. Okay. Next up, Manas from India, one of my great students here, who's written many books and courses on Udemy. Manas wrote, good morning, my dear mentor, Chris, please. How are you doing? I'm great, thanks. I hope you're doing well. And then you wrote, how is the U.S. doing in general terms? A lot to ask you this week, so you're ready. I know. So let's begin. Absolutely. So United States, it's tough here, and globally, of course. Inflation is at least 10% here and globally. And the frustration that the Federal Reserve is having. Now, in the United States, there are 7 people that are elected by the president that decide what interest rates should be, and they're called Fed governors. And the Federal Reserve, the Fed governors here, are frustrated because they're raising interest rates, but it's not really stopping inflation as much as they want to. And so what they're looking for, and this is awful, but it is what it is they're looking for unemployment to spike materially. The labor market is still really tight right now. And the biggest input into any product is the cost of labor. And so unemployment's under 4% right now. I think the Federal Reserve, what they want is they want unemployment to go up to 7 or 8%. And then they'll stop raising rates. It's awful. It's awful what's happening, yeah. And for those of you in the United States, please go to treasurydirect.gov. I put my reputation on the line in this. Go to treasurydirect.gov and buy bonds there, okay, I-bonds. And I can walk you through it. The rate right now is 9.62%, risk-free. It's one of the reasons the stock market is down because everybody's buying these amazing bonds, yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Icy. Oh, Icy, thank you so much for that $8 Australian donation. I appreciate it. That'll go directly to Project Magu. We're finishing off the roof now. I just wired another 10K over to cover that. A lot of the profits from my MBA program go towards that. And then what we're doing, and that's in Rwanda, where I went last year to build a school. And we're putting solar on the roof and whatnot. And then next year, we're going to start to work on our next one. Which is going to be a school for women in Kenya with Marin Koros, who's also another one of my MBA Platinum students. Yeah, thank you for that donation. So you wrote here, what are your views on oligarchy? Does it exist in the United States? Are well-known figures like Elon Musk and Zuckerberg regarded as oligarchs? Well, I would say that money gets you a lot of power and a lot of political influence as well. Not just through donating to political parties, but also hiring these unions and these people that will kind of get you certain influence in certain areas. I don't want to go into too much detail on that. You can watch House of Cards for more details on that. I don't think it's really an oligarchy. People say we're not living in a democracy in America because the rich have too much power, but I think it's a pretty damn good system here. And yes, we have a lot of problems here in the United States, but when I got my green card not too long ago, my citizenship, I had to take this exam. And I had to study about U.S. history, and I'll summarize it in one sentence. A bunch of people came over from Europe hundreds of years ago, and they wanted to create a greatest hit system of what worked from a political perspective in Europe here. And that's when they formed America. It is a democracy. It works well. And I'm not as negative as a lot of people are when it comes to conspiracies that, Zuck or Musk are in control of things. I don't think they are. Yeah. Okay. And if you don't believe me, just go and watch Mark Zuckerberg when he testified in front of Congress. And he had that annoying laugh where he'd go, ha! Every now and then. Yeah. All right. And if I don't answer questions correctly, or if you don't get the answer you want, or if anybody has follow-up questions on my answers, please just type them here. I answer the questions in the order in which I receive them. You can't put a link, though. Okay. It just won't let you. Also, cuss words are stripped out now. Yeah. Okay. Manas wrote, the Middle East has put an upper limit on oil production. Is it the Middle East and Russia strategizing together? How will the upper limit affect the United States and Europe? Yeah, I think it's probably like OPEC is probably thinking in general, okay, that they have a lot of problems in their own countries. I'm trying to be objective about this. It pisses me off what they did because they basically are helping Putin fund that war with higher oil. But to be intellectually honest and objective and look at the other side, there's probably economic issues they have in their own countries as well. And they have to feed their people. And so if they raise the price of oil, that might help a bit. But it's a fine line for them because if they overdo it, then the United States State Department and other countries will put a lot of pressure on them and maybe cancel government contracts, etc. Yeah. Yeah. We live in interesting times, that's for sure. Okay. Give me 1 second here. All right. Alex wrote, what is the price of gas in Shallow Alto, California right now? I don't know. It's like 4 something. It's come down a bunch. A lot of prices have come down, but labor prices have certainly not come down out here on the West Coast. Gavin Newsom, what he wants to do, he's the governor here in the state of California. I think he's going to run for president as a head of the Democrat Party. What he wants to do is raise unemployment, raise the minimum wage from $14 an hour to like $25 or something. So that's going to kill a lot of companies here. Yeah. But gas prices are coming down. Also, the price of lumber is coming down. It's down 70% off the recent highs. And real estate prices are coming down as well quite a bit because the 30-year fixed rate is now 6.7%. It's more than doubled this year. It's the highest it's been since the 2008 recession when we were within 24 hours of bank machines not working. Yeah. All right. I like you call it shallow. That's funny. Okay. Next up, Saurabh wrote, hi, Chris. I'm a crypto miner. As Ethereum mining has ended, how do you identify crypto coins for mining, which has potential like Ethereum and real world use cases? Yeah, I believe, excuse me, and I've said this for a while, that I don't think that the Google, so to speak, of cryptocurrencies has been invented yet. I love Ethereum, right? And I mined Ether up until recently. I can't do it anymore. It went from a proof of work to proof of stake model. But like, I love Ethereum because it's kind of a platform, and most NFTs are minted on the Ethereum platform, as well as most ICOs are done on the Ethereum platform. The problem with the Ethereum platform is that there's no limit on supply. Yeah, I'm happy that they changed the way that you mine Ethereum because it's much better for the environment. If you look at how much money people, or how much energy people have used to mine Bitcoin, it more than offsets the amount of carbon credits that are generated every single year. So it's terrible for the environment. Yeah. In terms of finding other similar cryptocurrencies or better investments, I don't know. I haven't found one yet. If I find one, I'll let you know. But what I recommend doing is, in my MBA program, I have an updated version of my cryptocurrency course content, where I help you analyze cryptocurrencies with 49 steps. Basically, what I do is this. I help you, and the way I architected it was, I looked at the S1 of Meta. Okay, and this is an IPO prospectus. I looked at a bunch of prospectuses, whatever you call it, plural, I don't know. And I created a way to analyze cryptocurrencies like investment wankers do and lawyers with these things here. And that's in that in my cryptocurrency course, and an updated version of that is in my MBA degree program as well. I'll leave it up to you guys to decide. Yeah, I'll teach you how to fish instead of providing you the fish. Okay. All right. Happy Me wrote, "Hi, Chris. Hey, how are you? Good to see you." Okay. Moving on to Manas, who wrote, Logan Paul got, and my kids watch him. They watched a fight on television. They all got together. A bunch of them put money together so they can pay $50 to watch the pay-per-view, which is moronic. So Logan Paul got an NFT for $600,000, and now it's worth $10. Is this funny, or does it teach us a lesson for the future? What are your thoughts? Yeah. So there's a lot of crap out there. Anytime there's a new market, all ships tend to rise, but everything gets massively overvalued. It's human nature. It happened in I think it was Holland back in the 1600s, when the price of tulip bulbs went up like 100 times, and that's actually how the options market was kind of created back then. It's human nature whenever there's this new shiny toy out there available. Yeah. But I think that most NFTs are absolute crap, and most cryptos are too. Right? You've never heard me pound the table on cryptos. I own 4 cryptos in size. I've always disclosed which ones those are. Yes, I think I'll make a lot of money in the long run, and I'm already up a lot in them humbly. But most of these NFTs are garbage. The best way to think of NFTs is like this, okay? It's all about supply. Like anything you buy or invest in, be it real estate, NFTs, or anything, it's all about supply. If supply is low and demand stays constant or rises, then the price goes up, obviously longer term. So make sure that NFTs, if you're going to invest in them, there's a limit on supply. Now, the best way to think about what is an NFT is think about a piece of art on your wall, okay? And if you bought a print before, in the corner, it says number, 3 out of 300. So that's a limited edition print, so it could go up in value. Make sure these NFTs you invest in are limited edition prints as well. And what I've been doing a lot of work on for more than a year now is I've been looking at NFT-based baseball cards. I collect baseball cards. I always have when I was a kid. Now I just buy more expensive ones. I'm a nerd, I know. But make sure there's a limit on supply as well. And a crypto you have to use to buy NFT or to buy baseball cards is called wax. Yeah. Now, in order to find out what a baseball card or sports card or NFT is worth, go to eBay, do a search on that card, whatever it is, the NFT, and then filter it based on items that have sold, and look for 5 or 6 sold items and take the average price. That's a good enough proxy for what the market's willing to pay. Yeah. Sold items. Okay. Next up, Manas wrote, why is the pound falling down? Is it because Liz Truss, the Prime Minister of UK, is doing something wrong? And why do they reverse the tax absorption rule that they created? Because they don't want to take on too much debt. Otherwise, they could default. They could default. And consumer confidence in this new prime minister is quite low. I don't think she'll last very long. Yeah, and she wasn't really elected. It was because Boris kind of had to step aside, and I was a big Boris fan. It was unfortunate. Yeah. Okay. And I think that hindsight's 2020, and I love England, but I think they're probably regretting the Brexit decision. I think it would. Hindsight's 2020, but they're probably regretting it at this point. Yeah. Yeah, and there's massive inflation there, and the economy is falling dramatically, and 250,000 companies went belly up in the past year and a half or so. It's rough, man. Times are tough for everybody. I love England, and I hope they pull through. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Adam wrote, did you have any successful day traders and hedge funds you worked at? Thanks for your answer. No, God, no. No, the best hedge fund investors are long-term focused. So the hedge fund industry was kind of pioneered by this brilliant man who just passed away, God bless him, named Julian Robertson in the 1980s. And Julian Robertson created a great hedge fund called Tiger. And Tiger was really successful. And a lot of people came out of Tiger and started their own hedge funds. And we call them Tiger Cubs. There's Chase Coleman from Tiger Global. You got Blue Ridge, Maverick, tons of them. And I mentioned that because these Tiger Cubs, for the most part, just like Julian Robertson, they're longer term focused. They make 3-year bets. But if there's insane volatility and a stock hits a target price, of course they'll take profits and trade a little bit. But for the most part, these big hedge funds, they might trade a bit, but really what happens is the bulk of their gains every year comes from 2 or 3, big concentrated long-term investments. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up, Charles. Charles wrote, hey, Prof, my question is, please, can a student with very limited or no background in finance and accounting background be able to cope with the finance and accounting class and pass? Absolutely. All my courses, my MBA program, etc., I always assume people have no background at all in business, finance, etc. I teach everything from scratch, everything, using a lot of props as well. I teach you how to understand and enjoy finance and accounting and read financial statements like a good book. And I do this because of failure on my part. When I was an undergrad at McGill 8 million years ago, I remember I got a D in accounting. And I got a D because I was memorizing stuff and trying to understand it. The way I teach it is I teach you to understand stuff. I use props. I have fun doing it. It's edutainment. Laugh at me, not with me. And you'll never forget the stuff after I teach it. It's like show and tell. Remember when you were younger and you went to school and you don't remember what the teacher said, but you remember the props your buddies brought in. That's how I teach it. It's a much more visual way, and it's a lot of fun as well. Yeah. Okay. And for anybody out there that buys my MBA programs or courses, you've got a 30-day, 100% money back guarantee. You can binge watch the whole thing and ask for your money back. My marketing team hates it when I say that. But if you ever watch my stuff and it's not adding value immediately, or if it's not crystal clear, then get your money back. Yeah. All right. Next up, Manas wrote, Putin has finally annexed 4 regions or 18% of Ukraine. What's next? He is planning to attack people who attack these regions. What the hell is NATO doing? Where's the UN in this justice? Yeah, well, a lot of countries are joining NATO as fast as they can. So if Russia attacks them, then that's kind of like an attack on America and the rest of the world. Yeah. But I was telling my kids back in February when Putin, invaded Ukraine, my kids asked me, I said, Dad, when is this war going to end? And I said, honey, it's not for decades. This is the Cold War Part 2, right? And so the Russian economy is irrelevant compared to the size of other economies. Now, I just, a while ago, I finished listening to Obama's audiobook. I love Obama to death. I love him. I didn't vote for him, but I listened to his audiobook, and I recommend everybody do so as well. Because in his book, which he narrates himself, which is great, because you can learn how to speak gooder and stuff by listening to it, because he's a good public speaker and stuff. But in his book, he mentioned that, Putin walks around like Russia is the second or third biggest economy in the world, but it's irrelevant, and it's getting smaller and smaller. He knows that. It's just a matter of time. Eventually, the world won't be using as much oil And then, as I mentioned earlier, the Stone Age did not end because they ran out of stones. He gets that. He gets that. And what Putin did was, when he studied in university, he did his degree in geology. And his thesis was, if the USSR were to control the bulk of natural resources in the world, what would that do to the dominance of Mother Russia at that point in time, or the USSR, as they used to call it? And so he was completely against perestroika and glasnost. He wasn't a Gorbachev fan. God bless Gorbachev, he's passed away. He's one of my heroes. He wasn't a Gorbachev fan at all. And he wants to reassemble the USSR. And his timing was impeccable. I hate him for it, but his time was impeccable. You had a president pull out of Afghanistan. Afghanistan, as much as people hate that war, and I do as well, any war actually, by having U.S. troops in Afghanistan, it stabilizes the region, so to speak, and it's like a chess move. From a game theory perspective, it stops Russia from thinking about, making the rest of Europe or the Middle East communist. Also, COVID was just exiting, so that, global armies were kind of in disarray. And so he kind of attacked at the perfect time. Yeah, breaks my heart. But this is just the first country, I think. Yeah. And I pray every day for everybody that's passed away in Ukraine. And by the way, my new website, I hired this amazing guy in Ukraine to do it all. He's worth every penny and more. And if anybody wants to redo their website, please send an email to me at support@harounventures.com so I can introduce you to Vlad. Who's the guy that did my website. I met him over Upwork, but I'll give you his personal email. Yeah, he's great. And we got to support him too. And if you have extra money, go to Airbnb and rent places in Ukraine. A lot of people are doing that. Obviously, they're not going, but it just helps people there. Yeah. Okay. All right, next. Hey, Renvir, how are you? Renvir wrote, when is the Gordon Gecko video coming out? Yeah. Thank you. So it's coming out probably next week or the week after. It's going to be our third Wall Street Pro Reacts to in the video series. We did one for Billions. We also did a video on my YouTube channel for The Wolf of Wall Street, which isn't doing as well as I thought it would do. Yeah, the Gordon Gecko one is coming out soon. Yeah, thank you. And that's where I got Gordon Lizard from in the MBA program. Okay, next up, Smart TV wrote, what do you think about the future of hedge funds? I think you're going to see a lot more AI-based hedge funds in the future. There's only one company that has really figured this out, though, which is Renaissance Technologies. Jim Simmons, his hedge fund has generated a gross return of 60% on average since the 1980s. And he has thousands of Linux servers running in parallel in his hedge fund called Renaissance Technologies. I did a vlog on this. You can search my YouTube channel for more details. But I think a lot more are going to be AI-based. Yeah. And I think fees will continue to come down because hedge fund performance has been pretty bad and underperforming since 2002 when Elliot Spitzer, the former governor of New York, created Reg FD, which means Regulation Fair Disclosure, which means that you and I have the same access to information at the same time the hedge funds do. All right, next up, Charles wrote, Chris, your down-to-earth teaching is wonderful. Thank you. Please keep your foot on the pedal. We need you. No, thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Speaking of pedals, I've got down here a bunch of pedals that I step on for slides sometimes, right? So if we have time today, I'm going to discuss 49 tips on how to sell anything. And I've got a slideshow set up I'm looking through here. Yeah. And I'm a nerd and I like gadgets. Okay, next question is Renvir wrote, Chris, how do I make the DCF valuation if the company is consistently loses money? Yeah, it's a great question. So when you do discounted cash flow, which I'm not a fan of, but I teach, when you do discounted cash flow, what you're doing is you're discounting earnings, meaning cash, that the company's going to make in the future. So if in years 1, 2, 3, and 4, for example, the company's losing money, DCF can still work because between years 4 and infinity, the company can be profitable. The problem with DCF, though, is that between years 11 and infinity, you create what's called a terminal value, and you discount that. And usually, 95% of the valuation of a company using DCF is based on that terminal value, which is why I'm not a big fan. Also, there are many different independent variables, meaning the weighted average cost of capital you have to use in order to create a DCF. And so garbage in, garbage out. If I told you x plus 1 equals pencil, what is x? Well, you know what it is. Or actually, no, if I said x plus, that was a stupid example, Chris. If I said 1 plus pencil equals 3, what is pencil? It's 2. If I said 1 plus pencil plus book plus goggles equals 3, what is pencil? We have no idea. That was the stupidest example ever, but I think you understand. There's too many independent variables when it comes to DCF. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Anurag wrote, "Hey Chris, hey man, are you heading to a recession as predicted by economists and experts?" I think that. Yeah, I don't see things getting better anytime soon. I don't. Yeah. And the market's kind of discounted this also. Yeah. And then you wrote, what is the reason for the pound falling against the dollar? So most major currencies have fallen versus the United States dollar. And we saw this in 2008 as well. In 2008, we were all within 24 hours of bank machines not working because of this financial crisis created in the U.S. Yet the U.S. dollar outperformed all other major currencies because it's seen as a flight to quality. And so the very last company on the planet to go belly up, to go bankrupt, so to speak, would be the U.S. government. It is what it is. It's been this way for a long, long time. It'll continue to be this way. The United States is the most democratic capitalist country there is in the world. Look, I want you to think I'm a pro-USA raw guy, but the numbers speak for themselves. Whenever there's a massive global economic recession, the dollar tends to outperform. This time, the reason the dollar is also outperforming is not just because of flight to quality, but there's also, given the fact that, in European countries, you got proximity to Russia, and they're much more dependent on Russia for oil and natural gas, and for other reasons as well. There's geopolitical risk there. And so the United States, kind of like around World War II, is somewhat insulated and is seen as a flight to quality. Also, most countries are moving towards the left. Right, a little bit too much post-COVID, right? And it bothers me a lot. I'm not a right-wing nut by any means, but I believe in capitalism, democracy, freedom of the individual, and I don't believe that there should be big governments anywhere in the world. I believe that there shouldn't be limits in terms of what you and I can accomplish. And what's happening now is most countries are going towards the left. And when you go towards the left, it's worse for stock markets and worse for currencies in those countries. And so even in South America, it breaks my heart, but, Lula came out of jail. He's a former prime minister or president, and he's left. He's lefty. And if he wins, then that would mean every country in South America is left, right? And so if the whole world moves towards the left, and China's certainly been moving more towards the left, and Russia, obviously, then where do you invest? You invest in countries that are not moving towards the left as much. Plus, the United States has been aggressively raising interest rates, a little bit more so than other countries. As a result, if one country's currency has a higher interest rate, then of course it's going to be a higher value than other countries. So Japan, for example, where the economy is contracting, and it breaks my heart because in Japan, they have close to 130 million people. But by the year 2050, there's only going to be 80 million people in Japan. The economy is really contracting. It's really sad. People aren't having kids. It breaks my heart. But inflation is not as big of a deal in Japan for obvious reasons. And so as the U.S. government keeps raising interest rates, it makes other currencies go down relative to the U.S. dollar. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, the issue in the United States is that government keeps raising interest rates here, but unemployment is still under 4%. And that's a big problem for the Federal Reserve. If we compare and contrast this, we go back to the early 1980s when inflation was close to 20%, and the government had to raise interest rates to about 20% in America. At that point in time, we had unemployment that was above 10%. And eventually that high unemployment led to deflation, and we don't have that right now. Yeah. Buy bonds. If you're in America, go to treasurydirect.gov and buy bonds. Everybody should do it. It's a no-brainer, no-risk investment. That's right. Okay. Next up, Vikram wrote, hello, Chris. I came to your video after a long time. It's good to be here again. Good to know that you're fine after the sickness. No, thank you. Thank you. And I still did. I didn't miss a single class for my MBA students when I had COVID. And I did one webcast I should not have. And you guys can go back and look at it. I looked like an old man. It was awful. I was so sick. And I sat in a chair, which I never do. And my parents saw it and they're like, oh, Chichi, don't do that. Yeah. Okay. But I feel great, thanks. More than great. Okay. And then Vikram wrote, I wanted to know if you're also teaching about NFTs, because a lot of the stuff NFTs is in the metaverse, and I also see some great promising projects. Yes, I'm working very hard on that. It's something I've been working on for about 8 months now. It's coming. It's coming. Yeah. And the metaverse stuff as well. Yeah. And in my MBA program, I will be adding 100 real life case studies using the metaverse. Still working on that, though. That will take me a while because the technology is not there yet. Yeah. Okay. Eric wrote, how could one acquire real estate to profit from it if their credit is not good enough due to their earnings to debt ratio? Yeah. Yeah, if you can't get credit to buy real estate, then what you can do instead is buy REITs. So REITs stands for Real Estate Investment Trusts, and they're tickers for them like stocks. And by law, in most countries, REITs have to pay out 90% of their profit in the form of a dividend. So when you do research on REITs to invest in, make sure the dividend yield is healthy, but not too healthy. What does that mean? Well, if the dividend yield is like above 20% on any stock or REIT, do your research, because it probably means the market is assuming that yield is not sustainable. Yeah. Okay. And I think you're in the Silver MBA program. What you can do is you can go to EMS 4-2, and then I teach you how to do these massive research reports on companies that will help you decide what to invest in. Okay. Renvir wrote, it seems that a recession is inevitable, although we are already in it, you wrote here. Rising rates may cause a recession, and decreasing rates may just delay the recession. Yeah, it's going to happen. It's unfortunate, but hindsight's 20/20. But when times were good, the government, in the 2016, 17, 18, I'm trying to make this a bipartisan comment. No, I'm not. No, the government really should have stopped putting pressure at that point in time on the Federal Reserve to keep rates low. Because what happens is this: when times are good, and there's a reason I have this in my hand, it looks dope though. What happens is when times are good, if the government raises rates a little bit every now and then, not too drastically, then what happens is when times are bad, they can cut rates and flood the market with money. This is fake money, of course, but they can flood the market with money. The problem is that the government didn't raise rates much at all in 2016, 17, 18, and 19. And then 2020 came along and rates were basically close to zero. They cut into zero. There's nothing else they could do. So you always have to have more ammunition, so to speak, in your arsenal so that, when times are bad, and economies are always cyclical, don't listen to anybody tell you this time is different, you can cut rates and flood the market with dollars. Oh. Okay. Renvir said, had you been the head of the Fed, what would you have done? Yeah. Well, in hindsight, had I been the head of the Fed, I wouldn't be that popular, because when times were good in 16, 17, 18, 19, I've been raising rates, right? I've been raising rates so that when times are bad like they are now, I could cut rates. Yeah. If you don't raise rates when times are good, you're screwed when it comes to a recession. And governments had to do crazy things in 2008 when rates were basically zero. They had something called cash for clunkers, which means that the government would buy your car from you, put money in your pocket. And in 2008, they had to create what's called TARP, Treasury Asset Relief Program, where the government bought like $1 trillion worth of crappy loans in order to help the banks. And even now, what the government's doing, because they can't really prop up the economy much more, the government is basically canceling $10,000 of debt from everybody that has student loans in America. If you make 120 grand or less, that's a little ridiculous to me. I think it should be if you make 70 grand or less or something. A couple that makes 250 grand is allowed to now, write off 10 grand of loans they own. The government's going to eat it. That doesn't seem right to me. Yeah. As much as I love, affordable education. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Okay. Okay. Now, if I was the head of the Federal Reserve right now, what I would do, I would continue raising rates, until prices started to come down. Because if you don't do that, you don't have an economy, in the long run. Yeah. Okay. And Icy, thank you for that additional donation. God bless you again. That will go to Project Magu. That's projectmagu.org. Thank you. You wrote that the companies that pulled out of Russia, do you think they're waiting for an opportunity to go back in once Russia stabilizes? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they are capitalists. The latest company to pull out was Lego, right? And so what happened was in Russia, you have all these knockoffs now. I don't know what they're going to call that company. I should probably call it Eastern Bloc. That was awful humor, but you know what I mean, like Eastern. McDonald's also pulled out as well. A lot of companies are pulling out. Coca-Cola pulled out as well. Tons of companies are. They can all go back in eventually. I mean, when I was a kid, back in the 80s, no American companies were in Russia. And then I think it was Mickey Cohen started with in the 90s at McDonald's, putting in the first McDonald's in Russia. They'll go back in eventually. Yeah, there's too much money at stake. But I don't think that's going to be for decades. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up, you like that joke, Eastern Bloc? A little bit. It was good, right? Okay. Next up, Yasin wrote, quick step to starting a tech business, all the way from idea generation to raising money and eventually exiting, meaning selling, harvesting, going public, whatever it is. What is the process in a nutshell? Yeah. Well, first of all, what movie is this from? Oh, look at me, I'm in a nutshell. I can't get out. I'll put in my venture capital hat to answer this one. This is my nutshell right here. Okay, so the way it works is, and I teach about this in my MBA degree program in a lot more detail. I should also provide you with all the tools and templates you need to start a company, because failing to plan is planning to fail. You got to have a business plan first. Infomercial out of the way. Here's how it works. So when you first start a company, and I have venture capital bootcamp in my MBA program, but when you first start a company, I recommend you write an entire business plan, right? The entire thing. I don't want you to spend a penny on anything. And also, when you start a company, I don't want you to use your own money. And I teach in my MBA program how to raise money from others by networking, etc. But initially, what you do is you have a business plan. You've got this product. Maybe it's not developed. It's called an MVP, minimum viable product. And then what you do is you go to wealthy people, angel investors. Never go to a bank. Go to angel investors by networking aggressively, and I teach you how to do that. And when you go to these high net worth investors, they might give you a little bit of money, and they'll own a minority stake in your company. Then after a while, your product starts to kind of work, and you're like, oh my gosh, look, I'm generating revenue. And you approach venture capital firms to do what's called the A round. The A round is the first round. So you go to a firm like a Sequoia. You can go to sequoiacap.com to learn more, or Kleiner Perkins, or Andreessen Horowitz. And then a year or two later, you run out of money. And so you raise more money, and that's called the B round. And the same venture capital firms may or may not invest in your company. They have the pro rata right to invest if they want to, so they don't get diluted. But they don't have to invest more. Then a year or two later, the C round, then the D round, and then maybe 10 years after you started your company, if it's a tech company and it's successful, then once revenue growth is positive but starting to decelerate, once it starts to decelerate but still positive, then the venture capitalists call up their investment banking buddies and say, hey, can you take this company public? And then a company like a Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs, et cetera, will take your company public. Yeah. And then what happens is the founders of the company and the venture capital investors are not allowed to sell for 6 months. So 6 months after the IPO lockup, what they can do is they can sell. And that's why sometimes you see stocks going down 6 months after an IPO, which used to be a good time for me to short it when I worked in the hedge fund market and then go long. Yeah. But a lot of that's priced in. So that kind of summarizes in a nutshell the anatomy of an IPO and a VC investment. Yeah. My hair is all messed up now. Yeah. Okay. It was easier when I had short hair, man. But we all have to change. All right. Next up, Eric wrote, I'd like to set up a food force out in the country because food will soon be a coveted item, and it could be a great barter item in future currency. I don't think things are going to get that bad. And I think you're based in Tennessee, United States. Yeah, I don't think things will get that bad. I don't. No. Okay. But I do believe that buying land, farmland, is one of the best investments you can do now. I bought a bunch in Texas. Don't mess with Texas. Good tax code there too. Because post-COVID, people are like, well, do I really need to go into the city to work? Like the whole notion of driving into a city, which is awful for the environment, and it takes 2 hours off your life every single day, which you could be using for exercising or spending time with your kids. Driving to the city, going to an office tower is moronic. It makes no sense. So I think that farmland is a great investment. I really do. Yeah. All right. Next up, and if I missed anybody's comments or whatever, just paste it again, please. I answer in the order in which I receive them. And I hope we have time to go over that sales stuff today. Okay. If not, we'll do it next time. Okay. Omar wrote, Haroun refers to a very wise leader in Arabic culture, so I won't forget your name ever. No, thank you. Haroun, yeah. And people say that the derivation of Haroun, it's Hebrew for Aaron, who is Moses' brother. Aaron, yeah. But remember, Haroun rhymes with baboon. Now you won't forget it. Yeah. No, thank you. Okay. Next up, Manas wrote, the Wolf of Wall Street vlog made my day. Oh, you liked it. Thank you. You wrote, life is tough there. How did you maintain your calmness on the trading floor while everyone was freaking out every day? Yeah. I always, I never get too worried about business. I never have. When it comes to career and stuff, business, I always see the positive in everything, even if people think it's an awful negative. With crisis comes opportunity if you react the right way, especially when you're investing. Because as Warren Buffett said, the New York Stock Exchange is the only store in the world where consumers sell stuff when it goes on sale. It's ludicrous. And that's why emotionally detached people tend to do better in investing. And just in life in general, in business. Be a contrarian and watch your net worth take off. Yeah. But also, a little side note for me, earmuff times, if you're not religious, I don't care, this is who I am. I don't worry about business because I tell myself, God already knows what's going to happen. And that puts me at ease always. And we tend to overreact and over worry about things that never occur. And it was Sir Winston Churchill who once said, I once met a man on his deathbed who talked about all the worries he had in his life, none of which came true. And as Dale Carnegie said, it's not work that kills us, it's worry. Think about all those times we all worried about crap at work that never materialized. Things are never as bad as we think they are. Okay. Next up, Eric wrote, I was surprised you didn't mention anything about the yacht in the Wolf of Wall Street. It's a big deal if someone loses a boat that probably cost $20 million. Yeah, you have to comment on that. I don't know how to respond to that. I don't remember in the movie a yacht sinking. Let me know, unless that was in pre-production or something. But let me know, please. I don't remember a yacht sinking in that movie. Thanks. Yeah. But I had so much fun doing that. And in that video, remember, I taped this to myself as well. Yeah, you have to watch the vlog on YouTube, Wolf of Wall Street, to understand why I did this. Yeah. Okay. Manas wrote, will Russia and the West relationship ever get back to normal in our lifetime, or will it get worse with days to come? I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. Yeah. A lot worse. And Russia invading Ukraine does not allow China to invade Taiwan. And, Nancy Pelosi went to Taiwan, and it was probably the only time that I've ever seen Republicans basically applaud what she did. And I applaud what she did too. Yeah. And then you wrote, thank you for everything. Next week, my course on the metaverse. The new one is coming out. I'll always tell you in advance. Project Magu will always have access to all my courses for free forever. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. God bless you. Yeah. And you wrote, see you next week and forever and ever. And thank you for all the wonderful emojis as always. And God bless you. Namaste. I love you. Okay, moving on to Vikram, who wrote, since we're talking about nutrition, that's how we say it in Canada, about. Since we're talking about nutrition, I do want to mention that peanuts, corn, and mushrooms are easy to get infected by fungus. Yeah. And I don't do peanuts. Corn is carb. I don't do much of that, except tortilla chips are so good in salsa. Mushrooms, I use mushroom extract only. Yeah. For cognitive abilities. Yeah, thank you. And then you wrote, so I would suggest that you not use these or their derivatives. Also, garlic. Yeah, I do use garlic as well, which is a great antifungal, along with coconut oil and lemons. Yeah, I put in garlic as well. This is crazy. I put a tablespoon of garlic. It's chopped up fine in each one of these as well. It's crazy, I know. Yeah. Okay. And then you wrote coconut oil and lemons. Yeah, I get the coconut oil in this, and then the lemons I get in that as well. Yeah, thank you. Rita, how are you? Rita is from Melbourne. It was his birthday yesterday. Everybody say happy birthday to Rita. Rita is one of my wonderful platinum students. He wrote, hey, Chris, here's a big hello to you and my colleagues, students from Melbourne. Hope you're well and happy because I'm happy as well. Awesome. Great to see you, man. Awesome to see you. Okay, next up we got Eric, who's a silver MBA student, wrote, if I follow my heart, I might end up making sculptural origami lampshades. Hopefully there'll be a market for this. Sounds like a kind of like a fun little side hustle there too. Yeah. Okay. Yassine wrote, do you believe incubators are the best route for raising finance? If not, what is for a pre-seed tech startup? Yeah. So there's the best incubators, so to speak, are there's three of them. I did a vlog on this on YouTube. You can do a search for it. I did a lot of videos on this. One is called a Y Combinator, which is like the Harvard of incubators, so to speak. Another one is called 500 Startups, which is a lot bigger. It's like a state school. It's easier to get into. Another one is called Code Stars, which is in Colorado, which is like the Yale, of incubators. They're all great. They take like, I don't know, a couple percent of your company, give you $1 million max, and they help you grow. There's one out here too that I was on the board for a while, helping select companies called Plug and Play Tech Center, which is located here in the Bay Area. Yeah, and I can go to more detail on that stuff if you want me to. Yeah. Okay. Patricia, how are you? You warm my heart. It's good to see you from the great state of New Jersey. She is also really into e-biking like I am. It's my new hobby. I love it. I'm 50, but I feel like I'm 12 now. Again, it's fun. Like my old BMX dirt bikes. Remember that? We used to put a baseball card in the tire so it sounded like a motorbike. Yeah. Good morning to you too. Okay. All right. Give me 1 second, guys, please. Yeah, we got a lot of questions here today. I don't know if I'll be able to get to the sales stuff I want to teach you guys. Give me 1 second, guys. Okay, Eric wrote, a Columbia, that's where I went to school, my alma maters. A Columbia professor appeared on Bloomberg recently and presented compelling evidence that America destroyed the Nord Stream pipeline. Several other experts have come to the same conclusion. Yeah, that's a really controversial topic. I don't know if I want to go there. Yeah. And then next up, I've got Nex Mula. Hey, Nex Mula, who wrote, don't believe everything you see and hear, Chris. You are not balanced in blaming one side over the other on this war or oil, etc. Okay, please let me know your opinion. Go ahead. I'd love to hear it. Thank you. Yeah. I'd love to know your thoughts on the war, though. Like, are you saying that what Putin did was fair? I'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you. Yeah. Okay, next up, Wade's World wrote, my best friend is putting all his money into a 5x leverage ETF on the London Stock Exchange. What advice do you have for him? Yeah, I wouldn't do that. It's you want to live to trade another day or invest another day. Yeah, a levered ETF, for those of you not familiar with it, means let's say we're investing in the FTSE, which is the index representing the markets in London, in England. And let's say the FTSE goes up 10%. Well, if I invest in a 5x levered version of that, that means that I'll make 50%. Right? So if the FTSE's up 10%, I'm in a levered 5x instrument investing in that, I'll make 50%. Okay, but if it goes down, you can do the math. So I would say don't do that. If your buddy wants to do that instead, I would tell him to just buy options instead. Okay, so instead of buying puts, you buy calls. So because if you buy a call, the most you can lose is the amount you put into the call, but you can make an infinite amount of money, right? So for him to put all of his money, into one investment, a levered 5x one is, and I say I love my heart, fiscally irresponsible. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Jamie wrote, A Botany of Desire is a great book on the tulip mania and what happened, as well as other similar scenarios, including McDonald's French fries. Yeah, very cool. Yeah. It's amazing how history repeats itself, though. Okay. Next up, Rita wrote, can you please give me or direct me to the program Magu? Yeah, absolutely. I'll show you right here. Okay, so you go to Project Magu.org right here. Yeah. And so this was us last summer. We did Rwanda. That's my son, Andrew. He was showing the kids a Snapchat, and they were laughing so hard. Yeah. And that's Vital, when I first met him years ago in Berlin. And then what we're doing is we're doing Kenya with Marin, who's one of my MBA students, graduated last year. Next year, we're building a girls' school in honor of her wonderful mother. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Next up, I have got here. Vikram wrote, I think NFTs are also about the utilities other than supply that they provide because of the business behind them. Yeah. And I'm certainly not over-invested in that area right now. I've done a little bit of investing in that area. And when I think about the metaverse also, I've got some NFTs as well I put up on my walls in my virtual world, which I'll show you guys another time. Yeah. Okay. Renvir wrote, what is your opinion on Richard Dennis and the Turtles? I've never heard of that. Sorry. Yeah. Alex P., who had the first question today, wrote, have you ever met a famous person whose personality was totally different from what you expected? Yes. Oh my God, you guys are going to laugh at this. Okay, so years ago, I'm a big baseball fan, and I like the New York Yankees, but I like the Blue Jays better, of course. But years ago, when I was like 12 or 13 or something, in the 80s, I was in Fort Lauderdale with my mom, and we went to New York Yankees spring training game. And I saw Ricky Henderson there, right? And Ricky Henderson actually lives around the corner from me now here. It's too funny. And I should probably mention this to him. But I saw Ricky Henderson there. And I had a baseball in my hand, and I said, Ricky, can I get your autograph? And in front of my mom and the media and tons of people, he looked at me and he goes, kiss my ass, kid. Yeah. So that's my Ricky Henderson story. That's what he did. Yeah. I've met a lot of other celebrities too, and whatever. They're all cool. Oh, Bill Gates. Yeah, he was different. So I had lunch with Bill. I sat beside him at some analyst event. Met him a couple times, and he changed. I remember he was he was very polite to me. I looked up to this guy, right? So I asked him softball questions. But there were hedge fund analysts at the table with us. and they were pretty aggressive in his face, right? The hedge fund mafia. And I saw him change. He was eating very nicely and whatever, and then I saw the fork and knife go from this to this while he was eating, and he had a glass of red wine, and it was hitting his teeth, and he was cussing. He changed, right? He's media trained. He was cussing, and he also, used the Lord's name in vain a number of times. And after that, I was so mad at myself for not correcting him on that. Yeah. But I think what he's done for obviously the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is wonderful, and he's a wonderful humanitarian. But there's no filter here. As always, I'm completely transparent with all of you. Yeah. But Ricky Henderson told me to kiss his ass. Okay. All right, next up, Shivanth wrote, hey, Chris, how can you be consistent? I love finance, but I can't sit in the chair for long hours. Any advice? Yeah. Take your breaks. You don't have to sit all day. I stand. I don't have a chair in my office that I use. Well, I do have a chair right there. It was just because my son Dylan was working here with me. But just try interrupting the pattern every now and then. Go for a walk. And you don't have to work from your desk at work. You can do it from any cafe if you want to. Change your environment. Yeah. All right. And Charles wrote, thanks for the answer to my question. You're most welcome. Okay. And Eric wrote, I've been teaching my web design and graph design to build sites and test product ideas. Very cool. And if you guys want to learn web development, I recommend taking Angela Yu's courses on Udemy or Rob Percival. They're both great. And I met them both. They're awesome. And they're from England, which means they speak better than us. Than me. Than I. Okay. Eric wrote, never eat McDonald's. I wonder what toxic chemicals are in the fries. If you put them in a jar a few weeks later, they'll be preserved. Maybe we should call them Franken fries. Okay, sure. Dude, I gotta say, I'm against eating at McDonald's, but I absolutely love chicken McNuggets. And I don't care if they're bad for me. It's my one vice with hot mustard sauce. Yeah. Okay, and Victor, I don't appreciate that comment. All right, Rose wrote here. So, do you think a recession will happen in 2023? I don't know. I don't know. It depends how bad things get this year. Maybe we have a dead cat bounce next year. Maybe things are so bad for the next 6 months that we can't really see negative growth next year. I don't know. And there's this quote, which I'm going to butcher. I always butcher this one, which is, economists have correctly predicted 75 of the past 6 recessions. Yeah. That's why I like to be long-term focused. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Chitan wrote, what are your thoughts on... I got to kick somebody out of here. Hold on a second. Okay, done. Okay. Next up, Chitan wrote, what are your thoughts on valuation using EV/EBITDA multiples? And could that be used as a fourth valuation methodology? Yeah. Yeah, I'm just kind of distracted by a comment somebody made. Sorry. Yeah. So the best way to think of EV/EBITDA is it's basically price to earnings. Okay. So you got enterprise value on the top, and then you got EBITDA on the bottoms, right? It's basically very similar to price to earnings. Okay. Except EBITDA stands for earnings before I trick dumb accountant. Now, EBITDA doesn't include non-cash items, right? Like depreciation, amortization. But I like to look at price to earnings, and I like to look at pro forma financial statements, meaning non-GAAP, because it's essentially very similar to PE. The EBITDA is. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up, Rose from the great state of Virginia. She graduated from my platinum program years ago. You started back in 2019. Thank you for your support. Rose wrote, what is your opinion on buying a house during a recession? I know people will probably get foreclosed. Yeah. and houses will not be cheap, but it is a good idea to buy a foreclosed home. Yeah. So foreclosed homes, or anything that is sold by the government at auction usually, are at depressed prices. And so I think you can get a fantastic deal on it. Just make sure that you have enough of a down payment so you don't have to pay these crazy high mortgage rates. Crazy high meaning 6.7%, which is what mortgages are at today. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just about to buy a place in Berkeley, maybe because of something like that. Yeah. Yeah, there's always value. Yeah. Okay, next up, the man wrote, please, can you do these sessions regularly? Absolutely. We need to continually ask questions about the economy in general and the latest current issues. Yeah. And yeah, in my, I have MBA program things, whatever, but I do 200 hours of live Q&A in all of my MBA programs. So I have 4 MBA programs that run every year. I launch one now every 3 months on a different day of the week. And each one of those has over 200 hours of live Q&A. Yeah. And the next one I'm going to launch actually is going to be maybe in January. Yeah. So I'll let you guys know more about that soon. You can always go to harounmba.com to learn more. Thank you. Okay. And then Secret Tuber wrote, hi, Chris, I love you. I love you more. You wrote love from India. Oh, I love India. Thank you. Especially dosa. It's the best food ever. I'm getting hungry, man. Okay. Next up, I got Pratham Patel who wrote, how do you raise capital for a hedge fund? Yeah, it's a long sales cycle. And if you go to my website, harounmba.com, you can download this book, which will teach you that sort of thing. And I cover stuff in my MBA program a lot more in terms of networking, etc. But what I would say is, whenever you're raising money, period, and I'll make this a generic answer, I want you to go to high net worth investors because the sales cycle is quite short. Don't go to institutions, especially early on, because you're wasting your time. I remember when I was raising money for my hedge fund years ago, I got a meeting with Caisse Depot, which is a big pension fund in Quebec. It was supposed to be half hour long, and it lasted 3 hours. I was like, oh my God, this is the best meeting ever. And so at the end of the meeting, I asked for the sale like I always do. And the guy said, well, thank you very much for your time. We will monitor you, and maybe 5 years we'll invest. Now, the problem with going to big institutions to get them to invest is a lot of these big institutions, they have analysts, and their job is to take 700 or 800 meetings a year. That's 2 per day. And you become a checkbox. Did I get this meeting today? Yes. And it's just a waste of time. Go to high net worth investors. Always. The sales cycle is shorter. Okay. And then probably when it comes to raising capital to start a hedge fund, you need to talk to a lawyer. So I used a lawyer here in the Bay Area named Jim Grand at the Securities Law Group. You have to have a lawyer create all the documents for you to protect you and to protect your investors, including creating subscription documents, investment offering memorandums, registering your company onshore, offshore, etc. Yeah. Okay. Secret Tuber wrote, if I have one sweet shop, how do you expand business like opening branches? How do you do it? Yeah. Oof. I would probably focus on online distribution. It's just that the margins are razor thin opening a retail outlet. But I need to know a lot more about that company, and I recommend writing a full business plan first. Don't ever start a company or scale an existing business without writing a business plan first. And I help you with that in my courses and programs as well. Yeah. Okay. Eric wrote, I believe there will be a recession/depression in America for many years to come. However, I think there will be pockets of off-grid survivalists and Amish communities that will thrive. Yeah. I mean, for years, people like in Israel, they've had kibbutzes. In the United States here, during the hippie generation, they had communes. There's always pockets of people that can be self-sufficient living on the land, which is kind of a cool way to think about it. Yeah. Okay. And Cairo asked a question about Rent-A-Berry is a good place to invest. I don't know that company. I'm sorry. Electronics on site, who is Eduardo, who's in my platinum program. He started last Friday. Good to see you, Eduardo. Eduardo wrote, "Hi Chris, happy to be here. Likewise. What is stopping an angel investor to steal your business idea after you present it and start a business with your idea with a third party?" Yeah. It's tough. And I don't ever recommend getting investors to, in your first meetings, to sign NDA because they probably won't take the meeting. But ideas are commodities, but execution is not. And it kills me when I hear people say things like, "Oh my God, I had that idea for Snapchat. I should have launched that company." Ideas are commodities, execution is not. It's all about betting on the jockey, not the horse. And so when you're meeting with high net worth investors or venture capital firms, the secret is they're investing in you first and your idea a distant second. And so I'd always rather invest in an A management team with a B business model instead of investing in a B management team with an A business model. Yeah. If you're worried about somebody stealing your IP, you can talk to a patent lawyer. You can go to LegalZoom.com and you can file patents. Okay, if it's a process you're trying to protect, or you can file copyright, which is a lot cheaper to do and easy to do if you want to, kind of protect your code, music, something virtual, whatever, and trademark for your brand name. Yeah, so I would talk to an intellectual property lawyer first if you want to. Now, the patent courts are really backed up in America. They've always been, and that's why sometimes you'll see, when you see infomercials on TV, unlike this infomercial, you'll see patent pending. Patent pending is almost as good as patent granted. Yeah. But talk to a lawyer first. I know jack about this compared to lawyers. I'm not a big fan of lawyers. Unless you're a civil rights lawyer, then I love you. Yeah. Okay. Eric, I should go buy some land in Texas and I can be your neighbor. Sure. No, I bought a bunch of land there, but I gave up the mineral rights. Yeah, it's a cheaper way to buy. So if there's oil on the property I own, I don't get it. But I don't care. That's not why I own it. Yeah. Okay. And give me 1 second, guys, here. All right. Sorry for the delay here. This is not a senior moment. It's just sometimes YouTube, the chat jumps on me. There's no way around it. I'm buying time here. Here we go. I'm trying to find where it was. Here we go. I think I found it. Okay, good. Okay, and Eric wrote, "I watched The Wolf of Wall Street on Amazon. Maybe it's a bit different version." Yeah, I don't remember the yacht or yatchet sinking that you mentioned yet. Okay. All right, so Eric wrote, your throat will get hoarse constantly talking on the phone. So you will drink a lot of water. How does one manage if you have a phone taped to your head, drinking half a gallon? And I won't read that last part. Yeah, but that was clearly from your comment. There was clearly from my Wolf of Wall Street video that I made, where I was actually in a scene. I don't know if you saw at the very beginning with Leonardo DiCaprio. I was, doing this. But when it comes to my voice, if I lose my voice, I've got lozenges that I keep handy because I do talk a lot. They're called Vocal Zone. They work, and they smell like weed. I don't do that weed stuff. I don't think that should be legal, but anyway, yeah. Doesn't taste like weed. All right. Next up, Jeffrey wrote, "Hey, Chris, loving the content. Thank you. Curious how you think debt markets will play out in the next 6 months as the Fed clamps down on bank reserves. Is more liquidity coming back anytime soon?" No. I don't think more liquidity is coming back. I think rates are going to continue to go up until the Federal Reserve sees two things. Number one, prices in general coming down, and number two, unemployment spiking a lot. Yeah. Because the biggest input when it comes to interest rates is the cost of labor. Yeah. And the biggest input into producing anything in general is the cost of labor. Yeah. Okay. Wade's Roll wrote, "Thank you. I hope this will help me convince him to rethink his strategy. It's been a rough battle. Risk management first." Yes, with your friend there in England who wants to invest in the 5X levered ETF. Yeah, please tell him to be careful. And I say it with love in my heart. Yeah. Mark, how are you? Mark goes by Satones. He types all in caps because he's my brother from another mother. He wrote, "What's up, Global NBA fam? I have great news to tell you. Thank God for you, brother. Awesome. I can't wait to hear about it, man. I can't wait to hear about it. If it's respect to that contract you were in negotiations for, God bless you and congratulations." Okay. All right. And then, yeah. Yeah. And for those of you wondering why I kicked out Victor, he made a comment that was anti-Semitic, and I won't allow anything like that in any of my webcasts. Any racism, stereotyping at all, unacceptable. Yeah. And I'm sorry for those of you that read his comment even. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Eric wrote here, Patrick Bet David, who has the Valuetainment channel on YouTube, moved from the Dallas area to Fort Lauderdale, two great states with low taxes. He purchased a waterfront mansion for $20 million. He'd be a good person to know. Yeah. Yeah. And Tony Robbins used to be based here in California as well. And he moved actually to Florida a number of years ago because taxes are way cheaper there. Yeah, I love Florida, man. Florida is such a great place to invest longer term. Florida is going to become Miami is going to become the next big financial center in America. I think investing in Florida real estate is a little pricey now, but longer term, it's a great investment. A lot of people are migrating there, obviously, because it's great weather and all that stuff. But also, it's a great place to start a business now. And Ken Griffin, who's the billionaire founder of Citadel, a firm I used to work at, he just moved the whole firm down to Florida. A lot of companies are doing this. I think Miami is going to be one of the financial capitals of the world. Yeah. And then Secret Tuber wrote, "Come to India. I will make fantastic dosa for you." Yeah, I love dosa. Anybody that goes to an Indian restaurant globally, don't like chicken tandoori and all that stuff is amazing, but ask them for dosa. Okay, even if it's not on the menu, just ask them. I promise you, I'm gonna beg you. I put my reputation on the line. Try dosa. It's so good. It's like Krispy Kreme donuts the first time you eat it coming fresh out of the oven. It's that good. There's no better food than dosa. And thank you for that offer. Okay, and then Jedi Dick Sensei wrote, "There's a disturbance in the force." Wrote, "Are you related to Dermot Mulroney?" No, I'm not. He's a good-looking guy, though. Yeah. But I've mentioned this before. I used to get during COVID. I don't mind wearing this mask, partially because I get like women will look at me, and the reason they will is because they're like, okay, maybe green eyes, I don't know, whatever. But he might be good-looking. He might be. But when I take this off, look at this. Oh my God, it's huge. Yeah, so that's why I still want to wear this mask forever. Yeah. I'm not related to Dermot Mulroney. But are these the droids you're looking for? And I'm watching Andor. I love that series as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. Mindy wrote, "Hey, Chris, hope you're doing well. My kids and I love samosa. I like samosa too. They're good, especially with the curry in it. It's so good. Oh, love that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. Rubina wrote, "Hey, Chris, we all love you. Thank you. You're awesome. Please don't take those comments to heart. Whatever they said was not worth your time. Remember what you tell us. I don't care." Yeah. No, thank you for that. I love you. Thank you. Thank you, Rubina. Appreciate that. Thanks. And then Eric wrote, "Are the spreadsheets available in all levels?" Yeah, your silver MBA, it's the same content as platinum and gold. Yeah. Okay. I love you, Rubina. Okay. Secret Tuber wrote, "Chris, I'm 17 years old. I want to be an entrepreneur. What top courses do you recommend on Udemy? Yours as well as others?" Yeah, I mean, start with I have a course on Udemy I made years ago. It's 7.5 hours. It's called An Entire MBA in One Course. I would start with that one. It's kind of a good introduction to business from a high level perspective. Yeah. Okay. And then Jason wrote, "Hi, Chris. I signed up for your silver MBA program this year, but I can't finish the class this year because of my job change. Can I finish the course by next year and attend the graduation next year?" Yeah. So you have access forever. Also, anybody that's bought my MBA or will buy my MBA, it doesn't matter what level, you'll get all the programming stuff I'm putting in as well. It's going to be a 6 module, which is program. Yeah. In terms of graduation, I'm so sorry. It's the graduation event and the yearly alumni networking event is for platinum and gold students. Yeah. But you can upgrade if you want to now. Thanks. Okay. And give me 1 second, guys. Okay. Icy, oh my goodness, Icy, thank you so much. Another donation. That's 3 times the charm today. Thank you. This time it's for 2x what you did before. It's for 15 Australian dollars. God bless you. This will go directly to Project Magu. Thank you. God bless you. And then you wrote here, I'm very humbled that you donated. Thank you. In the IT market, do you think bare metal computers and servers will die out now that businesses are moving to virtualization and cloud computing? I only hear about gamers talking about building machines. No, I still think there will be massive demand for building computers in scale, but I think a lot of companies will kind of create their own using cheaper components from companies not including Intel. For example, what Facebook does for their data farms is they create their own computers and they Velcro the components together as well. There will always be demand for it. Yeah, I think. But I think a good investment would be if you can find companies that find a better way to air condition or cool, computers and server rooms. That's a big market opportunity. And I know that Intel Capital, which is one of the biggest venture capital firms in the world, they invest a lot in that area, so they can cool their data servers. Yeah, but I'm not an expert in that market. Okay, Tahas wrote, "I just purchased your course and came to say hello. Thank you for the support. I appreciate it. How are you?" Okay, Mindy wrote, "In Super Pumped on Showtime, it shows Travis Kalanick as an excellent self-motivated individual who did get investors, even though he was really not a nice guy at all, according to the series." Yeah, it's a great series. I loved it. The funny thing is, Kyle Chandler plays the role of the venture capitalist. That venture capitalist in real life from Benchmark. I've met him a couple of times. We used to work in the same building on Market Street in San Francisco. His name is Bill Gurley. In reality, he's like 7 feet tall. He used to be a basketball player. Yeah, but I thoroughly enjoy that, and I love Kyle Chandler. He's one of my favorite actors as well. Yeah. Don't mess with Texas. Okay. He was a coach, right? In that Friday Night Lights, that Texas show I loved. Okay. Rishi wrote, "Hi, Chris. I'm from India. Hey. And I've just got 2 out of high school, and I don't want to go to college. Will your courses help me get a job?" Yeah. So I always say this with love in my heart. Whenever somebody takes my courses or my MBA programs and whatnot, I can take you to the water, but I can't force you to drink. If you apply the concepts I teach you in my courses, it will definitely help your career. But you have to practice this stuff. Repetition is the mother of all skill. And for those of you in my MBA degree program, there's plenty of classes now, and you all have your own Slack channels. I would recommend going to those Slack channels and connecting with other people and network, and also set up Zoom meetings. It's free to set up Zoom meetings as long as they're less than 45 minutes. Set up Zoom meetings to practice interviewing with each other, or to practice presenting with each other, or to practice portfolio management or anything I teach, because repetition is mother of all skill. But I really do believe that in business, it's who you know, not what you know. And so if you see a job opening online and you apply, your likelihood of getting that job is literally 1 out of 250. It's tough. And the person that gets that job knows somebody at the company. So if those are the new rules of getting a job, then I want you to network like crazy. And I teach you how to network like crazy in my MBA program, and it works. It works. I've had students in my MBA program network to raise $11.5 million. Jim Tusif did this. He was a platinum student, graduated last year. He raised $11.5 million from venture capitalists like Tim Draper, who invested in Baidu as well as Tesla. I've had students in the past couple of months that have gotten jobs at Google, as well as McKinsey, as well as the Boston Consulting Group, as well as Goldman Sachs in investment banking at the associate level, the post-MBA level. And this one student of mine, he started with Harvard MBA students, and he's halfway through my MBA program. Yeah, doing investment banking in New York City. This stuff works. And I know a lot about these companies that a lot of my students work at now, because I get a lot of requests from companies doing background checks to see if they did my program or not, because they wrote that in their application. Yeah. So the bottom line is that all this stuff I teach, I promise you it works, but you have to practice it a lot and be relentless like a pit bull and a pork chop. Okay. All right. Next up, P. Hats wrote, "Hey, Chris, how are you? I'm always great. I hope you're doing well. I asked you in the previous live for some tips on starting a commercial banking job, and you asked me about what the role is. Well, the role is both selling and underwriting." Yeah. Okay, I got you. So it's okay. It's like investment banking, where you're underwriting these things as well as selling a deal. Yeah. Okay. I think regardless of what the role is, it all comes down to aggressive networking. So what I would do is I would first of all have an up-to-date LinkedIn profile, and I teach that in my MBA degree program in a lot of detail. Then what I would do is I would network aggressively with people that have something in common with you that work in commercial banking in the roles that you want to have. And I would set up a ton of networking meetings with them. And if I told you that if you set up 50 informational meetings using Zoom or in person, if you did all 50, that I guaranteed you that you would get that job in commercial banking, would you set up those 50 meetings? Of course you would. So please set up those 50 meetings, but first watch the first semester in the MBA program, especially the personal growth track lessons, where I teach you how to create the most incredible LinkedIn profile ever, and I teach you how to network as well. Set up those informational meetings using the methodology that I talk about. Yeah. And if you're in my Platinum MBA program, I will personally write your entire LinkedIn profile myself, not my staff. And during our one-on-one meetings, I'll help you as well. Yeah. Okay. And then you wrote this role, it has to do with proposals for partnering, meaning sales, and financing businesses, and making the financial analysis of the potential clients. And I teach all that stuff in my MBA program as well. Yeah. And then you wrote, what are your tips? How should I prepare? I start December 1st. Yeah. I would recommend take my silver program, and you can watch it within a month or two, and it'll teach you everything there. And if you have questions about that and any of the content in my MBA program, the silver one, you can always come on to my weekly for silver students only Zoom call, which is every Thursday, starting at 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. My time. Yeah, in 7 minutes. So I got to wrap up this call in a minute or so, guys. I know there's lots more questions. And so if anybody here is in the Silver MBA program, just please get your questions and ask me them in 7 minutes. And if you're in the Silver MBA program, go to the first lecture in the curriculum to find this week's YouTube and Zoom links. Again, I do a weekly call for Silver students only every single Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11. And if you're in my Gold and Platinum MBA class, I will see you guys at 11:20 today for 2 hours of office hours using Zoom. And if you're my Platinum student, we have one-on-ones this afternoon as well. Okay. And so Eric, you're in Silver, so ask me your questions later, please, because I know you got lots of them, and I want to humbly help you as much as I can. And Rubina's got a bunch of questions. Rubina, ask me during our office hours, please. Gold and Platinum at 11:20. Let's see if I recognize anybody else here. Rose, you can also ask me as well during office hours at 11:20. Because you're a Platinum student and your grandfather in forever. Okay, great. So I'm gonna wrap it up right here so I can get ready for the Silver call. I've started it late past couple weeks. Sorry about that, guys. So I want to thank you all for your time. If you're interested in checking out any of my courses, I've got a 30-day 100% money back guarantee. You can always go to harounmba.com. Also, I'm a little bit upset with that person that was on the call before. Racism will not be tolerated, or any of those comments. This isn't the first time it's happened. Other people have done it before that I just haven't mentioned it out loud, but I've actually kicked people out. But for any of you that read that comment, if you were offended, I'm sorry on your behalf. And whoever that person was that I kicked out, I will pray for you. But I won't tolerate any of that on my weekly webcast. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, God bless you all. And I always finish with this video, this life-changing video that I licensed from the Silicon Valley Historical Association from Steve Jobs. God bless you all. If you're in silver, I'll see you in a couple of minutes. Thank you. Love you guys.
When you grow up, you tend to get told that the world is the way it is, and your life is just to live your life inside the world, try not to bash into the walls too much, try to have a nice family life, have fun, save a little money. But life, that's a very limited life. Life can be much broader once you discover one simple fact, and that is everything around you that you call life was made up by people that were no smarter than you. And you can change it. You can influence it. You can build your own things that other people can use. And the minute that you understand that you can poke life and actually something will, if you push in, something will pop out the other side, that you can change it, you can mold it. That's maybe the most important thing, is to shake off this erroneous notion that life is there and you're just going to live in it, versus embrace it, change it, improve it, make your mark upon it. I think that's very important. And however you learn that, once you learn it, you'll want to change life and make it better, because it's kind of messed up in a lot of ways. Once you learn that, you'll never be the same again.
Bye.